just for a few more to come on board. Give us another half a minute or so for those stragglers to jump on.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Andrew.
Andrew.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Terrific. Thanks, matey.
That's good. How many are we expecting?
We've had a couple of hundred,
Andrew,
over a couple of hundred register, so we somewhere between 100 and 200.
Oh, wow. That's terrific. Well, I won't say anything. I'll shut up from now on.
Right.
Andrew, any questions at all? Of course, for the webinar, we're encouraging everyone to put questions into the chat.
Okay. Where's the chat?
At the bottom, you can hit chat.
Oh, can you? I know everything. I won't have any questions.
No. All right, we'll get started. Good afternoon, everybody. A good morning to Andrew and to those in WA and other regions and time zones of the country. Welcome to today's webinar on electrification of kitchens. It's proudly brought to you by NAFES. Before I introduce today's session and our speakers, I would like to mention we've just released the dates for the CFSP courses for next year, running March, June and October. The dates are on the screen there. So if you have questions, inquiries or want to reserve a spot for those, please contact Jen. Details are on the screen. Come back to those other notes in a minute. I guess electric appliances in kitchens is not a new phenomena, but in recent times with increasing awareness and push for sustainability, government policy working to restrict and reduce natural gas consumption, building development changes, as well as a myriad of other factors that are going on at the moment, it's become more of a topic of necessity for many of us to understand better. And today we've got two presenters that come from two different aspects to talk about electrification of kitchens, including the high-level drivers that's pushing this from behind the scenes, the impacts around the developments and landlords, and working through to the pros and the cons in the kitchen itself. So you can push to the next slide, please, Suzee. Today's presenters are Suzee Brain, who's a director at Titanium Food, and they get involved with projects early on working with developers on overall planning of the food and beverage overall. And we've also got Nisha Ghantwal, who's president of the Mack Group, who are a food service design consultancy. So both of the presenters that we've got today are considered experts in this field. They're heavily involved in electrification movement for the last number of years and are well versed in the benefits and also the challenges that are involved in electrifying, and they're well placed to share many of those learnings with us today. So during the presentations from both of our presenters today, please enter your questions into the Q&A or the chat box, and we'll get time towards the end to address some of those. We're going to record today's session so that will be available if you want to go back on anything or share. So please put yourselves onto mute, sit back and enjoy today's session. We hope you get some good learnings and come up with some good questions at the end. I'm pleased to welcome and to hand over to our presenters today in Suzee and Nisha.
Michael, thanks very much and congratulations to NAFES for putting on this webinar. Seems quite timely given the number of people that we've got online. And so in saying that, Nisha and I are going to co-present for about 45 minutes on today's webinar, and then we'll circle back and take questions. So please do make sure that you're on mute and drop them into the chat box, into the Q&A function box as we go along. So I'm going to start off the proceedings. I'm going to talk a little bit about why there is suddenly this impetus to, why is gas the baddie all of a sudden, and what's the impetus behind this, and then build some of the cases for what are the benefits for considering moving across to all electric. But for all of that, we know that a lot of you have got hesitations, concerns and frustrations with the move to electrification. So then I'll hand over to one of the greatest experts in this field at the moment, doing some amazing things in moving electrification forward. And Nisha will answer a lot of those concerns and frustrations and queries. She'll show you how it's being resolved in real life case studies. And then I'm going to circle back and close with just a bit of a call out for some of the other things beyond just electrification that we can be doing in the food and beverage hospitality sphere to reach sustainability goals and do some good for the planet. So hold on to your hats. There's a lot of information in there. Nisha and I are going to be talking like the end of the product disclosure statements of an ad as we go on. But you'll see some contact details and things and other places where you can get information at the end of the session. And of course, you can request the recording. So why now and why gas? Well, the government is certainly pushing down on introducing regulations for Green Star and sustainability ratings in a lot of buildings. And with those changes that are coming through in legislation and in rating systems, it means that gas is one of the first things that gets booted out of the system. A lot of landlords who I'm representing or as advisor to landlords have also set their own sustainability and carbon targets that are actually faster than the government targets and often the Paris Agreement as well. So the landlords are wanting to move forward with this, and that is therefore pushing through into them building developments that are being built without gas or redeveloping their assets and wanting to push into the no gas arena. As a sideline, we do know that restaurants are far more intensive, up to 8 times more energy intensive than other uses inside commercial buildings, such as offices or specialty retail. But is it a good thing to say goodbye to gas? Well, typically, a typical cafe that moves from being a mix of gas and electric to going all electric, your contribution to the planet is going to be equal to taking off about 2 cars per cafe coming off the planet per year. But beyond that, there's also a whole host of other benefits, both for you and the planet, your consumers and the staff. And I'm going to talk you through where we're seeing those benefits coming through and some of the data that's emerging that is indicating that gas also can have some unhealthy side effects too. So one of the things that we are finding is there's some good space-saving efficiencies that can be done from moving to an all-electric kitchen with the right menu and the right infrastructure in place in existing buildings. When we swap kitchens over to all-electric, we can combine multiple pieces of equipment, reducing the hoods and reducing the extraction requirements. And that also frees up additional bench space within tenancies too. So there's quite a bit of reconfiguration opportunities that are good. We're also finding that there are certainly some great benefits for employees. The reduction in heat in the kitchen, the reduction in noise from not having to have the hood on all the time is certainly helping with some of the mental health goals and challenges that affect the sector as a whole. And then we are finding and have been able to calculate the cost benefits. So we do find a reduction in the amount of labour required to clean the kitchens when it moves to an all-electric kitchen, far less chemical use, and the overall life cycle costing across the term of the lease is lower. And just to give you a little bit of a sense and flavour for that, while the upfront cost of electrification can be around 50% more expensive than if you're fitting out a typical kitchen, when we actually calculate the life cycle costs of the energy, the staff cleaning, and the reduction in the amount of chemicals, there can be, again, on a typical cafe-sized tenancy, around $25,000 a year in savings. And then just kind of wrapping up my section, there are other benefits that are coming through too. So no gas means we have reduced fire hazards, we have lower risks of gas leaks, We have one less services consultant to deal with in new buildings and one less set of authorities to need to go through. And it also takes a load off the air conditioning through the reduced need for heat extraction and spill into the kitchens. So that's all the good stuff, but I know that we've got many of you naysayers might be there with burning ideas of why it's not going to work. So let's hand over to Nisha and hear about how to overcome some of those.
Thank you, Suzee, and thank you, Michael, for having us. It's very exciting to be sharing our experience and learning from this journey of electrification. Now, now that Suzee's covered the why the industry is moving towards electric commercial kitchens, I will be mainly talking about the how and the what's. So how do we electrify the kitchen? So in terms of electrification or electric kitchens, we've been sort of working on the new builds as well as electrifying existing kitchen. So when we work on the new builds or the new kitchens, it's relatively easier because we're working with the the design team from the beginning who are putting in the electrical infrastructure. So with the new builds, we've seen that the infrastructure, so when we work with the new building, we've got the services engineers in place. And if we are early on in the project, we do get an opportunity to inform the project team on what the electrical capacity requirement is. And that kind of helps put all the infrastructure in place for the new kitchens to work, and also allow some contingencies in case the business goes well and they want to increase the electrical capacity or the cooking capacity of that particular kitchen. Also, in terms of new kitchens, there's new equipment usually coming in place. People are walking into new spaces, so it's easier. They're sort of open to working in new environments, open to new technology, and open to new equipment. Also, the challenges with getting new cookware pots and pans that are suitable for induction, that is sort of eliminated because it's a new build, so there's always new cookware, things like that. And we worked on a fairly large number of new build kitchens, which are all electric. Recently, the Parramatta Square was one of the very award-winning projects in which we had all electric kitchens. Best at Blacktown, which is the Blacktown Exercise, Sports and Technology Hub. We had a really large kitchen which supported the cafe as well as the function. You can see the image on the right. And this kitchen had all electric equipment, and the operators were very open with having an all electric kitchen and working with that. And we visited the kitchen after it opened, and they had all good things to say about how everything was working. Also, this was one of the projects where we were involved right at the beginning, when at the conception of the concept design stage. So we were able to inform the capacity requirement, and that was all provided. In addition to that, we are currently working on a large number of projects which are all electric, from Cutaway in Barangaroo, Qantas lounges, school projects, and Woolworths Distribution Centre, and a large number of those. We also work on electrification of existing kitchens. So with electrification of existing kitchen, obviously come a lot of challenges. The challenges are mainly around, when we walk in, there's already some infrastructure in place. So when we walk into a project, knowing that we're electrifying, we usually like to understand the menu requirement, the capacity that goes with it, and also like to understand how the kitchen operates and how can we improve the overall efficiency. In that, then we analyze if like-for-like replacement is what we want to go with in terms of from gas to electric, or are we looking at reviewing the menu, cooking equipment, and introducing new technology? For example, one of the corporate office projects that we worked on had a fryer, had a pasta cooker, burners, and a combi oven, and a griddle. And they said they sometimes use the fryer, not all the time. Most of the time they'd be doing things in the combi oven, but they do need a fryer in case they need it for certain types of menu. So in that particular kitchen, we looked at providing a brat pan that can be also used as frying, and the double pan ones. So one of the pans can be used for frying, one can be used for grilling and things like that, with a 2-bar hob induction unit and a combi oven. So reducing the footprint, bringing down the exhaust hood size, and in turn also reducing the electrical requirement if we were to go for like-to-like replacement. So that has really helped. And also with the electrification of existing kitchen, education of the operators and the end user become really important, because they're used to a certain way of working in that particular kitchen. So they need to adapt to that change. So we usually organize demonstration with the help of our suppliers. Many of you are in this room. So we do, provide them that option that they can go into a demonstration kitchen, use the equipment, understand how it benefits them, and then with confidence move into a new kitchen, which is all electric. Sometimes we have, or rather in many projects, we have capacity issues with the electricity. So in that case, we again look at what are the options available, which we'll be covering in the following slides in more details. Also, the exhaust hood limitations, induction oven sizes. Currently, induction cooktops with oven underneath are challenging. So understanding if the oven under the cooktop, which was being used previously, is it just being used for holding plates, or is it actually being used? With combi oven being available in many kitchens now, those underbench ovens are usually not that much used for cooking. So just understanding the use of equipment and then providing that input, and also making them aware of the change of cookware from to pots and pans which are suitable for induction. So all of this education and working together with the operators becomes quite important when we are working on electrification. Now, with electrification, we are currently working on the Sydney Opera House Green Room Kitchen, and also informing them on electrification of other facilities on their campus. Also, UNSW, we have recently completed electrification of many of their kitchens and laundries, and they have a bigger target of, electrifying all their campuses. So we are sort of assisting with that as well. With corporate banks, we're working with Commonwealth Bank and Macquarie Bank on electrification on their facilities as well as all electric new kitchens in their facilities. And also Google is one of our important clients who have, looked at electrifying all their facilities, and we're working on their offices in Sydney. And also with councils, we do work. So with North Sydney Council, we've been working and advising them. We've sort of done the education part with, doing talks to the food and beverage tenancies in there and the users, the operators. And we've also assisted with some of their tenants coming forward, wanting to understand how can they go about electrifying their facilities. We work with them in providing them reports on various ways, like replacement or changing, or what does that mean to have a holistic approach to electrification and sustainability. So these are the projects that we've worked on. While taking along this journey, when we started working on this electrification about 3 or 4 years ago, when the murmur had just begun, it was really challenging from the perspective of education. So making people aware of the benefits of induction, on the safety, etc. But now, in current day and time, we feel that many of the users, as well as the developers, are quite aware of the benefits, that the electric power is more efficient, the equipment and the technology is available, it's more safe in terms of cold surfaces, etc. Lower maintenance cost. They have a consistency in performance, and also the environmental benefits, and also flexibility offered by many of the electrical equipment and how they can use, for example, the speed ovens or the pressure bath pans and things like that. So there's a lot of benefits which previously were doubtful, but now they are facts, which everyone's aware about. But there's still some fallacies and some myths that need to be bust in relation to with electric cooking, we have limited the cooking techniques, or there's limitation on how we can do char grilling or Asian cooking. So we've been working together with a lot of suppliers, equipment suppliers. Many of you are, present in this room. So we've been working together with you on understanding how technology can help. Some of you are R&Ding equipment, with that, and also working with the end users to develop the technology further. So, equipment suppliers like BNS, Moffat, Phoenix, Stoddart, they keep us abreast with the technology that's available, that is being developed in the electrical, equipment sector. So we keep ourselves informed. Also, we've been kind of keeping us up to date with research happening in the industry. For example, the Microsoft Office in the US, they converted to an all-electric kitchen, and they did taste tests on Asian cooking equipment, so using induction wok and the blind taste test, and they have provided reports saying there was hardly any difference in taste. So things like that, we keep ourselves up to date with what's happening around the world as well, to keep ourselves informed. There's question, when we go to chefs and we discuss electric equipment, sometimes questions are asked to us on our induction cooktops are glass cooktops, and it will be fragile with hot-headed chefs, but understanding, and we've discussed with our suppliers on how many times do you get broken induction cooktops, how many times do you have to attend to issues like that. And from that, we understand it's a very high quality, robust equipment that is made for commercial kitchen environment. And sometimes there's also, like, the electric equipment are complicated to use, but we are seeing more and more chefs finding that the electric equipment are much easier to use and the controls are much better. For example, for sous vide cooking with induction, you can maintain the temperature and the consistency, and that kind of provides a lot more benefit than a gas cooking equipment. So in certain cases, it is much better than the gas equipment that could be. So these are currently the myths that are slowly being busted. But there's still a lot of challenges, mainly from the designer's perspective. When we go into the industry and understanding the electrification requirement, what we see is the staff training, people being aware. The training is still a big part, understanding what the potential of the gas or electric equipment would be. How to utilize the full potential of the electric equipment, and the training in the right direction is really important to make the most of that energy efficient equipment. The big concern is the initial capex, or the capital cost. Many of the induction equipment, as well as speed ovens or energy efficient electric equipment, are at higher cost, which result in higher initial investment. There is a long-term benefit, yes, but many times you have one party developing and investing into the equipment and the operators coming in to use that. So sometimes that is not really something that can be explained, or so that in those cases that becomes challenging. The project budget is always small, and in that case, sometimes we have to look at options. And that could compromise the main intent of electrification in that case. And lastly, and the biggest concern, is the supply. So the infrastructure not being available for all electric kitchens. Many of the buildings, as soon as they hear all electric kitchens, we all know that it requires a lot of power. All the equipment are three-phase, and with large kilowatt ratings and amperage, and then especially with existing building being electrified, that becomes quite a big challenge. So just covering on that a bit more, we are starting to learn. I think we are very young in terms of electrification and moving to an all-electric kitchen. And we're starting to understand that in terms of all the projects that we've done in the last few years, we also feel that possibly we may be oversizing the electric boards, because a lot of energy, we are currently not applying probably the right diversity factor to make the most optimized use of the energy. So we've been looking around the world as to what is being done in other parts of the world. And in some places, there are energy optimization technology which are installed, which distributes the power where it's required. And in that sense, the overall electric requirement for that kitchen, the electrical capacity required for that kitchen can be reduced. And then the electrical energy which is used in the kitchen is used in the most efficient way, because I think sustainability starts with the first step, which is reduce. So providing more power may not be the answer. It is the optimal use of that power, I think, needs to be the approach. And that is why we would like to work with the design team, the mechanical team, the industry, to understand how this can be applied on projects, so it becomes more viable in terms of cost as well as energy. Also, from the electrification perspective, yes, the main intent is for electrification to be sustainability. Now, when we're looking at sustainability, going to renewable energy and electric is just one part of it. An holistic approach is really important. So when we are looking at eco-friendly refrigeration, energy efficient refrigeration such as GEMS rating, efficient equipment like fryers that use less oil, possibly induction fryers, high-speed ovens, pressure cooking, these, all these together can provide, in terms of equipment, a more efficient option. As well as in terms of operations, looking at ways to cut down the energy uses, possibly turning off equipment when it's not used. Equipment that have sleep mode could be used. Off-time cooking, for example, cooking overnight, slow cooking overnight, and using those options so that the energy can be distributed and the less energy or supply can be used for a particular kitchen. And then also looking at cutting down the waste, monitoring the waste, and designing less for hoarding. For example, on certain projects, but mainly in dining halls where you have people helping themselves to food, we've seen trays result in a lot of hoarding. People take a lot more if they have trays, but instead, if they have plates, there's less food wastage, as well as in terms of washing up, there's one less tray required per person. So it results in using less water, less chemicals in terms of washing as well, bringing down the overall cost and energy usage as well. So just looking at opportunities like that in projects, staff education and training, of course. And then also it's very important to maintain the equipment and service them regularly to make the most out of the equipment. Just touching a little bit on the future trends, we are seeing more and more governments, state governments moving towards electrification and providing that information on their website and legislating the all electric new buildings and keeping the gas out. So we've seen that in Canberra, we're seeing that in Victoria, so we're seeing that in a lot of government. We're seeing local councils, like we said, North Sydney Council, some of the councils being leaders in making their first steps towards all electric kitchens and electrifying new projects. There's also advancement in technology. Every day we are hearing more and more about what's happening in terms of electrification and better equipment, more energy efficient equipment that use less water, equipment that can provide versatile cooking options. So that's really important in terms of electrification as well, so we can provide that options to our client. Also, what is important is government incentives. Recently, Canberra announced the rebate for commercial kitchen electrification, which is fantastic because, like we mentioned, the cost of equipment as well as cost of having the capacity of electric equipment being installed is a big capital cost to developers as well as operators if they're fitting out the kitchen themselves. So it's really important for the government not only to legislate, but also to support the switch from gas to electric. And also we are seeing more and more consumers having a preference because of them being aware of the impact of the use of fossil fuel and how they want to negate that and have a more greener approach in their life just generally. So more and more consumers are aware of that and they would like to move to a more cleaner energy themselves. So that's what we are seeing in future trend. In terms of energy, renewable energy is the way to go for future, definitely. And we are seeing the research being done from the source. There's been talk about hydrogen energy that could be used to fuel our buildings, as well as other resources like the hydroelectric power, wave energy, tidal energy, solar energy, which is really big for Australia. But what it means in terms of building infrastructure is if we have the electrical infrastructure in place, it will be the main electrical supply coming from these different renewable sources. So the infrastructure doesn't become redundant over a period of time. Versus the gas, if we keep the gas out, it seems like slowly the gas will eventually become redundant. So it doesn't make sense putting the gas in the new buildings. Now, in terms of call for action or what can be done, we're thinking as consultants, we can educate ourselves, educate others, as well as discuss, like we're doing today, with the right forum to understand and discuss what the issues that we're facing, as well as understand and discuss the issues the others are facing, the challenges which are currently present with electrification. From the services engineers to understand what energy optimizing technology can be used, energy management system that can be put in place into buildings. So, we don't oversize the energy supply to a building. From the equipment manufacturers and suppliers, it's mainly, to understand what R&D is happening to fill the gaps in the technology currently that it's missing. Product training and education, which we regularly reach out to our suppliers to as and when required. Also, we were thinking it would be really beneficial to have a package provided in terms of, for a restaurant package saying, the cooktops, burners, griddle, fryer, and oven for a restaurant of about 100 square meters. This is the option of an all-electric package, and this is what it means to buy or rent this equipment. So this will really help us as designers, as well as the end users and the operators, to make use of that information and understand what it means for them to electrify. And is there enough capacity available? Do they have the budget to do that? And the renting or rent to buy option could definitely support that transition as well, in case of constraints with budgets, etc. And also just technical information for assisting electrification, like what's the kilowatt rating, what is the long-term benefit, how does it pay back? These are the information that we generally look for from suppliers and manufacturers to inform electrification of the project. And lastly, from operators and end users, it would be employee training, enforcing sustainable practices, regular maintenance of equipment, and probably getting together to petition to the government to provide incentive and support to provide more power for electrification. Over to Suzee again. Thank you. Jennifer, could you please unmute Suzee, if that's okay?
All done. I'm back in the game. Thank you. Firstly, if you ever need a cool as a cucumber consultant, Nisha has proven herself as a very worthy counterpart in that area today. And a thank you to all our audience for dealing with the distractions and staying engaged on this really important webinar today. So thank you, everybody. A shout out as we come to the end of it now, a bit of a shout out to people like Brad and Charlton who are starting to drop some messages into the Q&A function there so that you can make the most of your time with us. You may have missed a couple of really important points in the earlier part of today's presentation. So I encourage you in the next 5 minutes or so as I move into the wrap up to start dropping your questions in there so that we can spend time with you talking about those things shortly. But I just wanted to finish by talking about electrification isn't the only initiative that we can be taking to reduce the carbon footprints from the hospitality sector. So I just want to touch on some other areas and initiatives that can be undertaken that we're working with many landlords to help encourage tenants to adopt for reducing both the embedded and the emitted carbon out of hospitality operations. So a couple of those that I just want to speak to briefly now is certainly a call out to all landlords to support tenants in the move to electrification. If you're calling for electrification, then use education tools. Nisha and I have produced, our companies have produced some tools for you that you can share with your tenants, run webinars like this. Some of our clients like North Sydney Council set up demo pieces of equipment and provide some retail design management services to help their tenants adopt. These are all fantastic initiatives that we're seeing happen in the sector, and we really encourage that to continue. Outside of electrification, waste is a big issue. I'm going to talk about a couple of things around that. Water has some big impacts in terms of energy consumption, and looking to centralise water systems, introduce e-water to reduce chemicals, etc., are all going to help, and looking into packaging. So just we have done some calculations, and while generally hospitality businesses take up a small part of a commercial building footprint, they are actually over-indexed in their contribution to either retail waste or embedded and emitted carbon through their fit-outs and operations. So it is a worthwhile thing for landlords and tenants to work together in this area and come at it from all fronts. So just to extrapolate on that a little bit more, we've got we have got Nisha, could you just take my slides forward for me, please? Thanks. I want to talk about certainly embedded carbon. So we, through our retail design arm at Titanium, we work to upgrade retail fit-out design guidelines and look to at the very early stages of fit out, start to work with tenants to move from things like swapping out plaster ceilings for exposed ceilings, swapping out vitrified tiles to painted walls, sealed concrete, or epoxy screed flooring, and changing some of the counter top and furniture materials as well, to really move the dial quite significantly, as you can see on those numbers on the screen, of the amount of embedded carbon that's going into the developments. I'll get you to keep being my slide girl, please, Nisha. This is a good example of the materials that are now available for hospitality fit out. So this is rebar at the South Everleigh development done by Mirvac and Sunland Group. And so most of the materials here are all recycled. So we've got pineapple leaf material that forms all the covering materials on the soft furnishings. There's compressed mushroom material that's making up some of the lighting and some of the moulded furniture, and recycled milk bottles that form all the tile work that you can see. So plenty of things emerging there. In terms of waste, about 15% of all the food waste that ends up in our landfill comes out of the restaurant sector at the moment. Some early costings are indicating that for about every dollar that operators invest into waste, improved waste processing, systems, equipment, etc., saving about $7 in operating costs. And so for a recent webinar that we did for World Waste Reduction Day, I came up with a bit of an acronym that I think will appear on the next slide on what other ways we can reduce the food waste. So reduction was the name of the game. So as Nisha said, reducing plate sizes, particularly on buffet and share plates, and we're finding this in mining camps and those sorts of, and universities, colleges, those sorts of things. Reducing the plate sizes, reducing the trays, etc., does have significant impact on reducing the waste, encouraging customers to take their leftovers home. D is for donating leftover food to charities. I think many people are aware of those sorts of services that are around now. Utilising more of the food parts. We've got a great plethora of the up-and-coming young chefs who are really working on that sort of whole of plant, whole of animal type of approach to reducing waste. Composting, a very effective way of working on the waste reduction. Try your hand at some pickles and ferments. You can also look into your inventory management and trying to reduce waste at the use by date end of things. Offering choices for customers to allow them to not leave as much food on their plates. Also helps with cost of living pressures that are limiting customers engaging in restaurants at the moment, and noting the sort of leftovers that you get and then maybe making those a rejigging of your menu and your recipes to adjust to that to reduce the waste. I should just also mention, Nisha was touching on it, you know, we do a lot of preliminary research for landlords on who the customers in an area are going to be so that they can align the right kind of food and beverage tenancies and leasing strategies towards their assets. The alpha generation who are coming through now, the kids that are sort of 18 to 22, etc., they suffer from a condition called planet anxiety, and they are starting to make decisions on who they spend their dollars with by the values that those companies live by. So for the hospitality sector, if you really want to keep engaged and attracting the younger generations to become loyal, long-time customers, they are going to start to recognise you and endorse your business if you're adopting good, solid ESG strategies in your businesses. There's a QR code that's appearing on the screen right now. We'll give you a second if you want to download that QR code and sign up to our Snack Size newsletter. That's a great way that you can stay in touch with all these initiatives and updates as they're coming through. So I do encourage you to do that. And if you haven't got enough out of today's webinar, there are some great other places you can go for information. The local councils, we've already sung the praises of some of them today. Reach out to your local councils. They are certainly embracing electrification in particular and providing plenty of incentives and resources to help people get on board with this. The equipment suppliers, likewise, Nisha said, many of the NAFES members are doing a terrific job in keeping the industry updated and wanting to help and work with operators and kitchen design practices to move forward in these areas. We have also been working closely, the Mack Group and Titanium Food have been working closely with both the Green Building Council and also the Global Cook Safe Coalition. If you go to their websites, you will find an enormous amount of resources that can also help you in this area as well. So I think that kind of wraps it up from us, Michael, and we have got a few questions coming in, so we look forward to taking some time now to answer your specific questions.
Fantastic. Thanks, Suzee, and thanks, Nisha. Apologies to you two as our presenters and our participants today for a bit of messing around earlier on, and I'm so glad you're able to push through that, so thanks very much, guys. We do have a number of questions here, so I'll throw some things around for you too. The first one, do you feel that chefs need to retrain to learn how to efficiently cook without gas and still achieve flavour? We probably need to retrain on security settings in Zoom on our end, which we'll do, but I think there's a fair bit of training going on at TAFEs, and that with a lot more electrical equipment is being installed, so that training's happening. Nisha, maybe did you want to expand on, is there other areas or places that you're seeing that is happening?
Yes, definitely. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of training happening at TAFE, and we work with many schools, food tech kitchens, hospitality kitchens, and TAFE, and many of them are moving towards induction in their cooking classes and things like that. So and also the new cooking schools coming up in Canberra are all electric. So the new generation of chefs will already be trained in using those electric equipment. So I think slowly this hurdle that currently we are having with the training of how to use electric equipment and how to use induction to the maximum benefit will slowly phase out with the chefs already being trained on how to use. Also at home, many of the new residential buildings will not have gas anymore. So they will be used to using induction at home as well.
Yeah, great. Paul, I can see your hand up, so I might just ask Jen if you can unmute. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go on a couple of other questions. Yep. The load profile of commercial kitchens, can they be covered with alternative energy sources such as combining battery and solar systems efficiently? Suzee or Nisha, what do you feel more?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Sorry.
So can the load profile of commercial kitchens be covered with alternative energy sources such as a combination of battery and solar systems efficiently? I presume
that is why, like I said, we all in the industry have to work together. So we will need services engineers to come up with clever ways to provide that energy source to the kitchens. So working together, when we work with in a particular building, we've got the architect, services engineers, and everyone working together to make different the building work together holistically. So we can provide options on induction and energy efficient cooking equipment, but we would like the services engineers to come forward on how to best utilize and optimize the energy usage. Yes, of course, different sources and batteries and possibly a distribution of energy and new technology to distribute the energy can be used, but we really need that support from the services engineers to do that.
We've also been finding, I think if I can add on to that a little bit, and I'm not a technician, so excuse my layman's ways of explaining these things. But and again, I think Nisha said a little bit about diversification of load. So we often find that mechanical services calculations for electrification calculate on every piece of equipment being turned on full altogether at the same time. And that creates the load calculation for the EDB. But in fact, we've got some other consultants that we work with who have managed to review hundreds of kitchen formats, all the different cuisines, and are able to calculate what the actual load is in reality, because you don't turn all four burners on at the same time. Not everyone's using their deep fryers at the same time. So seeking out consultants that have got that sort of knowledge as well is another way to help, particularly in building upgrades, not as opposed to new builds where we really have a lot of opposition in that area.
Also, sorry, Paul, you want to go?
I was just going to just speak to it a little bit. So for all you that don't know me, my name is Paul Bainey. So I'm employed by Comcater, but I do sit on several standards committees, typically gas standards committees as well. But I am also a licensed electrician, so I sort of sit on the fence. I can see both ends of this story. I've done a lot of work on this, and I could probably spend an hour talking about it all. But just in a quick nutshell, from a diversity factor, that's an electrical maximum demand for a switchboard perspective. The way it's set out in the electrical wiring rules isn't 100% for every appliance type. So at this stage in a home, it's only 50% for cooking. In businesses, it's about 75%, but I think it comes down to the number of appliances you have. However, there is actually a deficiency in the standard as well, because right now for hospitals, it says only 50% for cooking. We all know, we're all in this industry, we know when it's service, everything's running. When we know when there is no service, everything's off. So the reality is we need to make sure that that number is more realistic. 50% is not sufficient. If you turn on 5 200 amp ovens, you're going to be drawing 1,000 amps, The other flip side of this as well, I've done a lot of calculations in this space for commercial settings. To give you an idea, so for a small cafe to convert from gas to electric, I've got heaps of presentations, and I have sat with the Victorian Energy Minister on this about 12 months ago and did disclose all of these figures. But essentially, you're looking at an 838 megajoule cafe now drawing about 483 amps of power, which equates to about that was a medium-sized restaurant. It's gone from 391 megajoules for a small cafe to 231 amps, which equates to about 4 homes won't have power. So if we were to scale that up to a hotel, it's about 14 dual fuel homes that won't have electricity. So my biggest concern, I guess, is where are we getting the power from?
That's correct. And also, it's really good to know that the passionate consultants and people in the industry, it's amazing to have this conversation. And with more and more kitchens now being electric, we're working with the Global Cook Safe Coalition to have a mapping done to understand how much energy is being used during a working of the kitchen. Also, UNSW, when we were working with them, as they are electrifying their kitchen, they would like to do their own study to understand the actual numbers and understand what, like you said, is 50% the right number, is 80% the right number, come up with the right number, because currently that information is certainly missing in our industry. When we're designing, when we have to, when as kitchen consultants, we design a kitchen, we inform a services consultant as to how much power he should be allowing for our kitchens. That confidence of saying, okay, 80% that's missing, and for that mapping is quite essential. And with more and more electric kitchens now being available to do that study and possibly do the mapping, I think soon we will have that information which will really help us bring that confidence.
Thanks, Nish. I've got 2 questions here that are a bit similar, so I might read both of them, and I think you have maybe a similar answer here. Is there a rule of thumb for electrical supply required in new tenancies, i.e. amps per square metre required? Do you walk through a space and kind of say, right, we're going to need a certain amount of power to run this? And how do you work that on a high level? And then the second question, would you be able to provide some calculations for energy savings for the conversion to electric? Is there some easy kind of quick go-to high-level calculators that people could access?
So first question in relation to a thumb rule, we don't yet have a thumb rule, but we've worked on certain projects like large, Brisbane Waterfront was developing a large complex with multiple retails. So we created groups of all the F&B retails and as to what the cooking equipment requirement for each of them would be, and then map out a sort of a thumb rule saying, okay, the small tenancies which are just doing reheat sort of facility would require so much, versus a large 100 square meters, a restaurant type facility would require certain. So we do provide that rough guideline, but I think it would be good to develop such a guideline, definitely, to help everyone. Yeah, so that would definitely be useful. Also, in terms of benefits, we many times work every equipment because it has different efficiency level. We work with the suppliers to provide us a bit of information on the long-term benefits. So water saving, electric saving, generally doing that. But like I said, mapping out. So we're working with UNSW, and they've converted their gas kitchen to electric, and they're doing a study on what the energy the consumption was when it was fully gas versus electric, and provide that information to us. So hopefully that will be beneficial, and hopefully we can share that with the rest of the industry soon.
We also had, we've got a lovely guest on the call today as well from North Sydney Council, Ian. He does recommend Rewiring Australia as well as a great resource. They've got some initial costings and things that can help you understand life cycle changes, savings that can be made.
Right. I think I can see Ian also mentioned the Global Cook Safe Coalition might be a good go-to source for some other information too. Charlton asked, are there some common pitfalls that you've seen of people transitioning older kitchens from gas to electric that you might be able to highlight as warning areas for people to not overlook?
We've already shared some of them in our slide when we are doing electrification. I think the main challenge is the capacity. the electrical capacity. And it's very important to not just take like for like replacement, because many times when we get electrification requests, we get a plan saying electrify this kitchen, but we usually like to go on site and understand the operation. I think understanding the operation and providing more energy efficient options will not only to keep the gas out, but achieve the overall energy efficiency. The main aim of the whole electrification process is to have moved to a more energy efficient kitchen, not just keep the gas out.
And also, Nisha, I think we found some good results too by looking at the menus, right, and not necessarily taking the old menus across into the new electrified kitchen designs.
Yes.
And that also then means we've got to have staff training and education to embrace those changes as well.
Absolutely, yes.
Very good. We're just hitting 2 o'clock, so we're just at the end of our time. You guys, Suzee or Nisha, have anything else you wanted to add today?
It's really exciting times now in the industry. There's changeover happening, and it's really nice to sit with a group of people, like-minded people, and understand what the challenges everyone's facing and learn from each other's experiences. So thank you everyone for your time. And if there's any input or questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you, Nish.
Nisha and Suzee. Sorry, Michael, I was just going to quickly update everyone. So just from a cooking appliance point of view, for residential institutions, hotels, boarding houses, hospitals, and accommodation houses and motels, full current rating for the highest rated appliance, and then 50% full load for every other appliance is what the standard says. And it's 75% for factories, shops, stores, offices, business premises, schools, and churches.
Can you tell me what the year of that standard is, or what standard are you referring to?
It's ASNZS 3000 2018, and that's the Australian Electrical Wiring Rules, and it's table C2.
Great, thank you. Now, I think the standards also need to be updated to keep in line with the times that are changing with electrification, because I understand all these numbers are based on kitchen using gas appliances. Yeah,
that's correct.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for your input today. Suzee, any final words?
Carry on.
Carry on. That's it. That's the word for the day. Well, we want to thank our presenters today, Nish and Suzee. Thank you very much for all the work that's gone in and presenting today and sharing with us some further insights into electrification. Got some really good resources for everyone to dip into after this to investigate those further, and feel free to reach out to our 2 presenters outside of this if you want to engage them or have further conversations. So thanks everyone. Thanks for joining the call today. Apologies again for the interruptions. Have yourselves a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well done.
Thank you.